Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for coming to this Market Dojo webinar. We're just going to give people a couple more minutes to get in. I can see people flooding in now. So it's 1 o'clock. We'll give people another minute or so just to join, and then we'll get started. Lovely. Let's get going then. I'm sure people will still be joining as we go. Well, first of all, thank you very much for coming to this webinar on discovering supplier relationship management. My name is Ben Harvey. I've done a few of these before. I'm the product manager for Market Dojo. That's all things Market Dojo, including this, our brand new product, SRM Dojo. With me is Adam, one of our senior business development managers, who's going to talk you through some of the benefits and why you would want to use SRM Dojo. Say hi, Adam.
Yeah, hi, good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm really excited to join Ben today for this milestone webinar for Market Dojo, another module release, which is very exciting for us all here today, and I can't wait for us to get started in presenting this with you.
Lovely. So just to go over what we're gonna show you today, we're gonna show you all about the new tool. First of all, what exactly is it? Then go on to why you should be using it in your business, what the real benefits are going to be, and then a demo from myself, and then we'll kind of hint on what the next plan is, not only for this module but subsequent developments that are going to feed into SRM Dojo. Just to let you know that currently in the GoToWebinar drop down, you should have a document to download if you'd like. There's a guide on how to set up the SRM with some more details on how exactly to configure your system. Lovely. I'm going to hand over to Adam now as he goes through detailing what exactly this product is before it's back to me to show it off.
Thanks very much, Ben. So yeah, I guess the opening question really is SRM Dojo, what is it? Or Supplier Relationship Management, what exactly is it? And it is a great question because when we started the foundations of looking at building this module, as you can imagine, leaving it to the imagination of the procurement professionals, it does have very much a broad and wide definition of what exactly that means, what's included in an SRM. So we've completed some workshops in the past. We've listened to our customer feedback, much like we do with our other modules and the development of those. And this is kind of a summarized view of what we define SRM as, and what hopefully our customers will see the benefit from in terms of their interpretation as well. So just to summarize some of those key features that the solution is intended to provide. It's very much a centralized supplier database. The ability for you to automatically assign contacts to suppliers, etc., and also categorize accordingly. So where you're managing those large category trees of your directs and indirects and all of the categories and subcategories that fall under that, this is very much the foundation or database, if you will, of what that information looks like. And alongside that, it's the ability to then log your activities and your calls and notes and meetings and audits, etc., that you will carry out as part of your day-to-day, monthly, quarterly, biannually, once a year, every 3-year activities and actions that you have as a responsibility as managers of those particular suppliers. The system is very much designed to track that information, so you've got a single source of truth to always rely upon as and when the next person goes in and has a look at that particular entity. And that can also be attributed externally, so you can actually use the system to drive a lot of those key milestones and activities and actions from the supplier side as well. So an example might be that you would attribute a quarterly business review not only to a category manager but also a point of contact from that supplier side, making sure that everybody understands as and when that action needs to take place. And on top of that, the ability then for management perhaps to monitor those internal objectives and have a look at making sure people are reaching them, hitting those targets, making sure that they've hit the milestones with those relevant suppliers, and just have a real good I guess a stranglehold of what's going on in the least physical possible way, but certainly just so that everybody has that visibility of when the last activity took place and when the next one is due. And of course, the overall benefit of this is it's all located in one place. and that any specific user will have a dashboard that's relevant to their actions and activities. So yeah, it's that whole overview, being able to understand exactly what's going on across your supplier relationship. Moving on from that, why should you use it? Well, it's a really interesting question, because I imagine that many businesses at the moment manage their suppliers. Well, you should manage your suppliers in one way or another, but the majority, without using a solution, will find that it's a very tricky activity to monitor. It's an ongoing activity. Anytime that you're working with a supplier, from cradle to grave, I suppose, there is always going to be actions, activities, and milestones that you will be looking to monitor during that period of time, but they're not always easy to track. A lot of the manual activity tracking is just not really fit for purpose in this day and age. Everybody is kind of moving to the online solutions that will obviously give you that single source of truth and the ease of being able to have that overview. So why do we reckon you should use it? Well, it truly is the golden standard for all procurement data, not only for auditability, but for also, ease of data management and capturing any of that information by means of report format. It also allows us, and I guess this is very prominent at the moment, or certainly has been over the last year or so, to continue a lot of those supplier activities with the inability at the moment necessarily to go and see people in person. It allows you to continue that, remotely. And the seamless remote working is a real key thing that a lot of us have had to learn how to do, how to manage by working from, as you can see today, our homes, and still being able to manage those relationships without it being interrupted by, the inability to perhaps go on site or even see people face to face for a coffee, for example. But again, alongside that, the other advantages of using a system as opposed to doing things manually, and this is where it couples up with the rest of the Market Dojo modules. It will bring in all of that data across anything else that you're doing in Market Dojo, be that the sourcing activities, the supplier onboarding activities, or the contract management. Whatever modules you may or may not use at the moment within Market Dojo, of course, if you do use them at the moment, then it's an advantage in that you'll have that data already set out, and it's very easy for you to then navigate across each of your suppliers to see what's going on with all the contracts you have in place, what sourcing activities they've been involved in, any changes in the contact details of the point of contact from that particular supplier's organization. And then, of course, being able to actively monitor those supplier relationships throughout that time that they've been involved in anything you've done on Market Dojo. Just to stress, SRM, much like all of our other modules as well, they are designed to be standalone, but there is an advantage in using them alongside other modules within the Market Dojo family. And we're very excited because this is another module that obviously we've developed alongside the former modules, which seamlessly integrates, and you'll be able to see that shortly when Ben demonstrates. So just to summarize, the tracking of activities and objectives, logging of everything. I've said it before, the single source of truth. We hear this a lot in procurement, and we also hear it a lot with analysts and data analyzing and management of that information. Why is it key to use a system as opposed to going manual? Well, this will help you do all of that. And also the responsibility and where it sits. Sometimes those things can get lost if managed manually. This is just the, I guess, safety net of ensuring that nothing gets missed and everybody understands exactly where they are in terms of that particular activity, and of course logging it not only internally but also giving a friendly nudge to your supplier to make sure they understand exactly when the next milestone is due to be met. So I think I will hand back to Ben now, who is going to very kindly demonstrate to everybody how the SRM module works. Please do feel free to ask questions in the questions panel. If you do have any questions that you would like to be answered, I will be monitoring that, and after the demonstration, we'll leave some time at the end to go through the Q&A. So I'll pop myself on mute now and hand back over to Ben.
Lovely. Thank you very much for that intro, Adam. Before we get into the tool, just want to stress that as with Contract Dojo, when we brought that out with the 10 free contracts you can add to that tool, you're also able to access SRM Dojo for free right now. Superhosts will have access, and I'll show you that in a moment, but also the ability to issue out 2 further free licenses, the only restriction being on how many activities you can create a week, but the rest of the functionality all there as you'd see fit. So let's get into the demo. I'm going to start here with a user who's not used SRM Dojo before, so what you might see if you're coming to the tool for the first time. You can see very kindly that our support team have put in a little alert here to let you know that SRM Dojo is now live, and I can click there or onto the SRM panel in the top, and I'll just see a single button at the moment because I've not used the SRM before. I have a little tooltip to explain to me exactly what's going to happen, but I'm going to detail that now for you. For a user who's used the Market Dojo modules before, be that Sim Dojo, Contract Dojo, Market Dojo, Innovation Dojo, any of the suite, they'll already have users on the supplier side within the system. What this button is then going to do is it's going to bring all of those supplier contacts together and assign them to various suppliers based on their email domains. So for instance, myself and Adam, both with the contact email at marketdojo.com, the system would detect that and say, okay, they both belong within the same supplier. Previously, we've been working on an individual email basis. This is our way of going into a supplier-based system. Okay, so if I were to click on that button, what would happen is it will populate my whole database. I'm going to jump to a user where this has already been done. And you can see here what I would then land on the SRM dashboard with a series of widgets detailing my tasks and my suppliers and any actions I need to perform. I'm actually going to gloss over the dashboard for now. We haven't seen the functionality, so there's no real power in it right now if you don't know what you're looking at. So let's go straight on to our suppliers. So as I say, these suppliers, some of them have been generated automatically based on existing data in the tool, and you can see that down the right-hand side with an origin of system. You've also got the ability to add a new supplier directly into the tool. This is where a user has added it directly into the SRM. This isn't a process that just happens at the initial generation of data. If I was to go away now and add a new supplier into Sim Dojo, the SRM would automatically pick up that supplier and assign them appropriately to the right. Automatically pick up that contact and assign them to the right supplier within the SRM. Just to show you some of the functionality that you can see from this list view right now, the number one is in this top right-hand corner where you have the shortcuts option. The overall idea for SRM Dojo is that it's going to be the hub for all things procurement in your business. We would love this to become your homepage and the place where you action other items off. So we'll show later how the dashboard can show you all the things you've got to do today, but also you can set up these links off to other systems, internal systems or external. So I'll show you that in a second. I've glossed over one thing first. In the SRM settings here, we're giving you the ability to issue out these licenses. So as a superhost, I've already mentioned you'll get these 3 free users, yourself included, and then 2 additional. Previously, we've handled this on our side, but we're moving towards more power for you and allowing you to issue out these licenses yourselves. So you can see here, I've generated this automatically. It's given me 3 free licenses that don't expire. I've already assigned one of them, but I have the ability to come in here and assign another as I see fit. And it will show me how many licenses remaining. And if you were to buy a full license with us, as we hope you will, more licenses, if you want to go over 3, you will have that total shown here. Going down to the link I was just talking about, you have the ability to add 5 URLs here, so I can add an additional URL with a title and the URL link. That could be off to an internal document site or another tool you use, perhaps for raising POs, just giving you the option to jump to anywhere that would be important to your procurement team. Comes with some of the other settings in a moment, but staying on the supplier list, you can see you've got full filtering abilities here. So if I search for test, you can see at the top I've got a total suppliers of 6, but after I search for test, it's going to limit me down to that one supplier with test in its name, and it actively reflects how many suppliers there are in the list. Removing that for now. I've also got options on the right hand side to immediately jump to view my suppliers, logged in as BH user 1. You can see in the owners list, and I'll show you how to set those in a moment. But if I click on my suppliers, I just automatically get a list of the suppliers important to me. Additionally, I can merge suppliers. So for instance, when we're doing that automatic generation of data, let's say you have some contacts with @marketdojo.com and some with @marketdojo.co.uk, they would be automatically assigned into different suppliers. Should you want to merge them together, you have that option here of selecting the first, selecting the second, coming up with a new name for the account, and they'll automatically move those contacts together so that they're under one supplier name. Okay, you've also got the ability here to jump straight to editing. So if you see anything untoward about these values, you can jump straight off to editing here. Other things to mention, you can see the total number of sourcing events that this supplier has been involved in and the number of active contracts, so excluding anything that's already expired. Okay, I think that's it for the list view. If we jump in and find my best supplier for demonstrating, and I'll take you through the various features that are shown on the supplier record. So first of all, to touch on what I've already spoken about, you see here the supplier contacts. These have been automatically sorted into this supplier based on the email domain @testing.com. I can add a position for them should I see fit, and I can also add additional information if before they've registered into the tool. These are populated by the participant user after they've registered. But I can update their position pertinent to my business. So in this example, BH Part 1 is my account manager on the supplier side. I also have the ability here to select whether they are verified or not. As we're doing a lot of this data generation automatically, we're aware that there are going to be some instances where people don't get sorted into the right location. So you have the ability to here to say, yes, this person is confirmed to be at this business and they've been allocated to the correct supplier. So it's these two contacts from where all of the additional data comes. So if you're using any other Market Dojo tool, it's where these two participants have interacted that generates the data that you can see above. So here the website, phone, and the name has been taken off the first supplier's profile. So where we automatically generate that supplier, the supplier's profile has some of this information on that we take and populate this supplier. If you click to edit, you have the ability to update these fields as you see fit, be that updating the phone number, website, or the overall name of the business. I also have the ability here to select who is the owner, and that's an internal owner. I can select from my users to say who has the authority on this supplier. I can select one or multiple, and they'll show up for those users in the relevant locations. I also have the ability to set addresses, be that one or multiple, by adding additional addresses. I can also assign tagging, which I'll get onto in more detail momentarily. But here you can see the domains as well. So for that automatic generation of data going forwards, I can update the domains here to say, okay, anyone with that additional email domain should also be added to this account. So you can see, even though this account up to now only has testing.com, if anyone's added to my systems in the future with testing.co.uk, they'll automatically be assigned to this account. Okay, let's save that and come back to the supplier record. And just to go over some of the headline figures in the header. So if you have SIM Dojo, you'll be familiar with these statuses, the decision status, the onboarding status, and document status from your onboarding tool, and it shows these values as headline statuses within the header. Additionally, if you have Market Dojo, you can see the sourcing events that they're involved with, how many are actively ongoing, and how many they've been involved with over the life cycle of the products. Contract Dojo, if you have contracts assigned, you can see how many active contracts one of these participants is linked to and how many are currently expiring. Activities, I'll go into the full detail of that functionality in a moment because that's SRM specific, but you can see the headline figures, how many are open, how many are upcoming, how many are overdue. To touch on tags, which I briefly showed, you can amend in the edit menu. We already have a tagging system in SIM Dojo, and if you're familiar with that, and Market Dojo actually, and if you're familiar with that, this works much the same. If I go to my SRM settings, you can see here, if I scroll right to the bottom, I have two ways of assigning tags. I can create new tags for myself in SRM Dojo, be that just SRM tagging. And if I save that, oh, SRM tagging 2 then. SRM tagging 2. I can set whether that's going to be a required tag and any tags that I want to allocate against that category. For someone already using SIM Dojo, they may have already set up all of these tags, so we didn't want you to have to duplicate that work. So if you're already using SIM Dojo, you have the option here to link those tags straight through to the SRM. So in this instance, in SIM Dojo, I already have a tag for product, a tag for region, a tag for spending tier, and I've elected that I want to show the tag for product and the tag for spending tier within the SRM. As those things change in SIM Dojo, they'll be reflected here as well. You cannot update the tags against the record here because of the workflow implications in SIM Dojo. Similar to tags, we've also got custom fields available here. Those using SIM will be familiar with these already, and Contract Dojo as well as custom fields. And if we scroll back up, you can see I have similar functionality. So I can create a new custom field with the title as I see fit. I then have a selection of the type of field I'd like to show, whether it's mandatory and whether it's currently active. So instead of having to go through and delete fields and then re-add them later, if you just want to mark that as inactive, you don't lose any of the data against the supplier records. It just won't show momentarily. So you'll see this SRM custom field won't be shown on the record, but custom field will. And again, if you've already populated these fields in Sim Dojo, we don't want you to have to duplicate your work. So you can update whether you want to see these within the SRM here. So if I go back to my SRM, you can see in the top right, I've got my custom fields, source and other source from Sim Dojo, and then custom field, which I've created manually in the SRM. I'm just going to double check my list to make sure I've gone through everything there. Perfect. Moving on then to the list, to the tabbing system below. We've already been over the supplier contacts and who they are. What you also have here is a list of associated contacts. To go into some detail about how these are pulled, in the instance of where you've added a contract, for instance, to Contract Dojo, and you add two people of different domains, what the system would then do is assign that person of a new domain to their own supplier because it's sorted them based on email domain. But what it will do is it will put them here to say, okay, well, they are associated with this account in some way as they're on the same contract as one of the contacts on this supplier. So for instance, you can see here the source is contract for both James at test1.com and test at test.com. That's a mouthful. And that's because they're both on a contract that BH Part 2 is also on. And that's why they show here. Similarly, in Sim Dojo, you have the ability to create full contact lists within the tool. And if you've created a contact list where there is one person of one domain and another person of a different domain, the same thing will happen. So this associated to at differentdomain.com will be in their own supplier account, but they're showing here to say, okay, there is some relation. And this might be in cases where a supplier uses a third-party legal team or a third-party IT team, where you would not necessarily say they're part of the customer, they're part of the supplier, but you want their information logged here in some way. You've also got the ability to add contacts here freely. You don't have to add them through other tools. And if I add a new contact, I get the same form we've already seen for editing. And similarly, on associated contacts, I can do the same. Moving through the other tabs now, I'm going to briefly touch on activities. You can see here there's a full list display. This is very similar to the list I'm going to show you later when we go into more detail about the activities. But just to show you, they also show on the supplier record. Moving through the other tabs, those familiar with MD will see their sourcing events here. So you can see who is the owner of that sourcing event, when it went live, what type of event it is, in this instance both questionnaires and RFQs, the participant who took place. Of course, this is a collation of data, so it may be any of the individuals against the account who took place in that event. You can see here BH Part 1 took part in one, and BH Part 2 took place in a different one. You can see their progress through the questionnaires, whether they've completed the RFQ, and how lots were awarded as part of that event. So you can see the bottom one, they had one lot awarded, and the lots have not been awarded in the top event. I can also, as with all of the links that you see within the tool, click on this sourcing event here and automatically be taken to that sourcing event within Market Dojo. So I can immediately go and see what the status of that RFQ was. Moving on to onboarding, for those using Sim Dojo, you have a very similar basis. So we're bringing all this data together for a centralized hub. You don't have to go searching for everything in various tools now. You can see the participant name, you can see the questionnaires that they've been assigned and the status of those questionnaires. Have they submitted them? Are they yet to submit? Are they resubmitting? And you can see the date on which that happened. You can also see the overall onboarding status for that participant. We know some people like to invite the same contact to Sim multiple times to go through various processes. So you'll see below how we accommodate that. There's also a second panel here in case you invite multiple contacts from the same supplier to a Sim event. You can see that here. And it also shows me any additional contacts in the contact list, should I add anyone. For most people, this will just show as a single panel here. Similarly with Sim, if you're using Sim Dojo, we're very aware that people have very important questions they ask within Sim Dojo, and this is a place that we can show off those in a snap. So you may have questions around policies, maybe it's modern slavery or GDPR or other important policies that people must agree to, or perhaps documents or other important information such as SME or how the ownership of the business is distributed. And you can show these here. So if I go back to my SRM settings and scroll down slightly, I can choose to link sim questions here. So if I link a sim question, it gives me a list of all the questionnaires I've created in Sim Dojo. Let's choose high risk. I can then select the questions. I've not named them very inventively. And if I click on save, what will then happen is if this supplier has completed that questionnaire within Sim Dojo, you'll see the answers here. So you saw on the last screen, I actually assigned 3 questions to show here, but as this supplier has only completed 2 of them, whether that's because they've only been issued 2 of those questionnaires or whether they haven't completed the 3rd questionnaire yet, we can see the answers to 2 of their questions. So this would be really useful if you want to just not have to go into Sim and into the specific questionnaire. If you just want to view a key piece of information very quickly, this is an excellent way of doing that. And you can see who updated that value, the value, and just a reminder of what that question was. I've already talked about Contract Dojo briefly, but just to say, you can also pull your contract information here. So those 10 free licenses still available for all, but if you choose to go with Contract Dojo fully, you can assign all of your contracts against the participants that are within this supplier, and they'll show here as well. So you can see again, I've got a click to jump off and view that contract within Contract Dojo. I've already shown that for MD, so I'll skip over that for now. But I can see all the key fields here: the type, any stakeholders that are assigned against that contract, who the supplier contacts are, so BH Part 1, that's why they're showing on this account, the start date of the contract, the expiry date, and I can immediately look at any documents that have been uploaded. Finally, Innovation Dojo, which is our feedback gathering tool. You can also see the questions and suggestions that have been raised by participants there. So in this instance, on the topic of innovation, I can click to view that in Innovation Dojo. You can see that one user has submitted an idea for a monthly innovation meeting and when it was submitted and the current status of that within Innovation Dojo. This is a really helpful tool for getting the relationship up and running, ideas on both sides for how the relationship could be improved. Finally, onto notes. There are 2 different forms of notes here. Number 1 is notes you can add manually within the SRM. So I can just come in and add a new note here, new SRM note. And if I type in the note body and save, you'll see that's been added as a new note here. So you might want to just track general information here, perhaps contact times or other useful information that people should check. Similarly, I can also see notes that have been collated from various other tools. So in the event that notes have been added against this participant for a sourcing event, I can view those here. I can jump off to view the sourcing event this is associated with, and I can also see the body of the note. With onboarding, you can also add notes, whether that's during the approval phase or outside of that, and you can do the same here. I can jump off to view the SIM event that this is associated with, or I can just view the body of the note and when it was created. And again, repeating myself, but for Contract Dojo, you can also add notes against contracts, and they'll show here. Just bringing all of that data into one single location so you don't have to jump off to find what you're looking for. And I think that's it on the supplier side. If I just go back to my supplier contacts, I'll show you a different view. I'm going to click on this supplier contact email here. And now I'm viewing the individual contact. So the record is much similar. The headers are a bit less detailed because there's not as much information pertinent at the contact level, but you can see the relevant information such as email and the contact number and the position, which you can update via editing. I can jump back to the supplier if I wish, either by clicking on the supplier name or clicking back. Just to go through some of the various actions you can take against a contact. Number 1, I've already shown you can choose whether they are verified or unverified. Number 2 is I can archive this contact. This would be useful in the event that a contact has left a business. You still want the data to be collated under that account, For instance, if someone were to leave supplier A, you wouldn't remove them from that supplier because their associated Market Dojo events, their Sim Dojo, their contracts wouldn't show against that supplier anymore. So what you do, come in here and archive them. Their status would then change to archived and they'd no longer show as a relevant contact. You can see the source here as well from where they were gathered. I can move this to another supplier in the event that perhaps a supplier is actually split among different regions. I might want to do that. If they've been assigned to one automatically by email, I might want to move them elsewhere. I can make them an associated contact. I went through that information a little while ago, but if this was a supplier for a third-party IT team, maybe I know they're also associated with various others of my suppliers. I can create a brand new supplier. So in that event that I spoke about previously, where perhaps Market Dojo has a UK branch and Market Dojo has an American branch, but they all use marketdojo.com as their email domain, maybe I pick out one of those American contacts and create a new supplier specific to American Market Dojo. I've also got the regular functions of edit where I can update the position and any other fields if they've not registered, and also just delete the contact altogether. Going through the various tabs, they are exactly the same as you would see for a supplier. So I can see just the individual sourcing events for this person. So before we had two, that was because one was for PH Part 1, one was for PH Part 2. So they would both show under the supplier record. But when I'm viewing an individual contact, I only see their records. So sourcing event is here. Onboarding, they've been involved in 2 events. Sim questions, I can see their responses. Contracts, I can see their contracts. And Innovation Dojo, I can see anything they've responded to. Lovely. Okay, double checking my list. I think that's everything on the contact side. Going back to the SRM homepage, and then I'll show you that supplier list view here, exactly the same as you'd expect, really. It's the same as the suppliers, except with a link off to the relevant supplier. So I can immediately see, I can search for an email address and jump off to view the supplier instead. I can also see whether they're active and the source again. Okay, and you can see this shortcuts option is always available from these 4 tabs. Jumping up to activities now, which is some of the really important new functionality we've added within SRM. Aside from all of that collation of data from elsewhere, you can also add new activities from this page. So let's view a completed activity for reference. So you can see here I have the ability to set the type of activity this is, whether it's an event, just a general event or general or call or task or whatever you see fit. And then I can set the subject, be a headline piece of information so I know what it is, but I can go into more detail on the right hand side and the exact purpose of this. So for instance, it might just say quarterly review meeting here, but the purpose might be a chance for us to sit down after 3 months and go over X, Y, Z. I can set the status, so everything will start in an open status, but I can say that it's moved to in progress. I can also mark it as completed, at which time this cell in the bottom right will be automatically marked with the completion date. I can also set the priority, whether that's low, medium, high, or critical, which are the defaults, or something you later go on to add. And I can set, importantly, the due date. When does this action need to be performed? Whether that was historically, you could say I did it and now it's completed, or whether it's for the future, I've got a meeting in a month and the due date is to set that up or to hold the meeting itself. And I can set a date of alert. So when do I want to be notified about that? Maybe a week before the due date, maybe later, who knows? But you can amend that as you see fit here. And there's some information exactly in these tooltips about what each field does. Onto the assignment tab, Adam has already mentioned very nicely that things can be assigned internally and externally. Well, this is how we're going to demonstrate this. So you can see I'm the current owner of this event from an internal perspective, but I can also select who this is regarding. So in this instance, this activity is regarding BH Part 1. Now I have the option of whether I want to notify the supplier about this activity. So on that due date, an email will be sent to say this activity is coming up. Here are the documents and notes, as I'll get onto in a second. Do I want that to just be sent to my internal stakeholders, or do I want to notify the suppliers? In this instance, I'm going to leave it just so that it stays against the record, but is private to us as a host business. On the Documents tab, I can upload as many documents as I see fit. I have that option there to include in the notification. So if I edit this, you see this drop down of edit, including notification, and I get a choice on whether I would like to send that out with the email that goes on the notification date. Similarly, with the notes, I can add new notes here with the title, whether I'm going to include it in the notification, and the body of the note. And you can see if I click edit, then it automatically populates this, and if I save, it just updates the existing value. So that is the bulk of the functionality here. You can see at the bottom, I've also got options to just go back and close this, but I can also create a sub-activity. So I'll show you an example of that in the list view now. You can see I've got a quarterly review meeting here, and I have the option of a drop-down. This is because I've created a sub-activity. So for this quarterly review meeting, I have many actions to perform, one of which is this new activity here, and you can see a link off to the parent activity, and I can create numerous sub-activities should I wish. So you might have one overall task, which is, quarterly review meeting, and then you might have a series of subtasks, which are go over KPIs, assess the current relationship, etc., etc. And I can amend as many details as I see fit here. Let me just double check my activities, and I think that is everything. One more thing to touch on is I also have the ability to create a draft. So if I've started creating activity, get drawn away, need to go and check the record, I'm not quite sure I've got all the information, this activity will stay in draft status until you come back and publish it. Okay, I think that's everything in terms of activities. Apart from at the top, you can see the standout figures for open and overdue, and you got the various data here on the right-hand side about which contacts are involved. It automatically detects the relevant supplier, so you didn't see me input that, but what it does is it looks at the contact and says which supplier they are part of and shows that here. Okay, now I get to show you the dashboard, which as Adam said previously is really, we've tried to make this as tailor-made to the current user as possible with just relevant information. So you can see here some of the widgets that are going to be involved. I'll get to those in a second. I wanted to show you some of the other functionality that is available from the dashboard. First off, the download the SRM guides. I support you very kindly. The one I mentioned previously that's available in the downloads bar, you can also download that from here. On click of that, I can click here to download the guide, which goes over some of the configuration I've already touched on. I've also got the ability to search here. So if I search for test, what it's going to do from the dashboard is it's going to automatically perform a search both on suppliers and supplier contacts. So instead of having to go to the supplier and search on a specific field, I can just type in test and it returns me all of the suppliers that have that in the account name, phone number, or address. And you can see here at the moment it's specifying any field. If I wanted to in particular look at the address, maybe being a Birmingham lad, maybe there's a supplier that's called Birmingham something, but I actually want to view businesses that are in Birmingham. Maybe I click on address and it specifies that I'm only looking at the address field. I can also search by tag. So if I do logistics in here and search, it's going to determine me no results initially because it's looking at those fields. But if I search by tag, it's then going to say, okay, well, here are all your logistics suppliers. You can see testing.com's been returned again. Some key fields are shown there as well, how many sourcing events they're involved in, active contracts, just to give you an idea on how relevant this account is. Okay, I'm going to go back to searching for test. Just to show you that underneath, I've also got all my contacts and I have a similar functionality here. I can search by any field, the name, the email, or the phone number, and you can see all the records and the accounts they're associated with, the names and phone numbers if those have been populated. I can also search by events. So earlier I was showing that I had a sourcing event. If I search for the name sourcing event here, initially no one will be returned because I'm searching on fields, but if I search by an event, you can then see, okay, these two took part in a sourcing event called sourcing event. So if you're in our Market Dojo and you want to quickly come in here to view all of the details of the participants, copy, paste that name in here, and you can view all of the contacts associated with that. Similarly for contracts, if you have a particular contract you want to view information for the contacts associated, you can search by contracts. I'm just going to click on this X, and it's going to dynamically return me straight back to my dashboard. In the top right, I have dashboard settings where I can select the widgets we'd like to show. But as I say, we've gone about trying to make these as specific to the user as possible. So hopefully you'd want to keep many of them. I've also got the ability in the top left to add a new supplier, as we showed earlier. It's a quick process. If you're fully certain that they don't exist in the SRM already, you can do that from here. Okay, just to go through the various widgets then, My Activities in the top left by default shows you the activities that are assigned to you that are still open. So not completed and not cancelled. You can see here, it shows me the subject and I can click to view the activity immediately. It shows me the due date, the associated supplier, and I can click to view them. It also shows me the current status. So this is being sorted by due date. So I've got two that don't have one, but then from there on, I have my overdue tasks first and then underneath. And also at the top, I can see how many are overdue, how many are in the next 7 days, etc. In the top right, I showed you previously, you could add owners to particular suppliers, where you can jump off to view your suppliers here. So if you're assigned as an owner, this shows you that list of suppliers, and I can click on the supplier name to jump off to them immediately, but it also gives me an idea of how many activities are open for that supplier and the tags associated. Scrolling down, there's an actual activity type named objective. As Adam touched on earlier, we think it would be really useful in this tool if you could also, not only for your external meetings and tasks, but also having objectives for the internal team, whether you want to assign just yourself as an individual or maybe yourself and your line manager to go through your objectives, they will show here. So I can see my ongoing objectives within the tool, the due date, what the current status is. I can add sub-activities should I see fit, but any event marked with the objective type will show in my objectives here. Lovely. Next, supplier list by tag. We're aware that many people in management might not have particular suppliers that they need to manage, but need to have an overall view of the supply chain in a particular area. This is one way of doing that. You could, of course, set yourself as an owner if you see fit, and they would show in the My Suppliers widget. But let's say, for instance, I only need to know about logistics suppliers. Well, I can click here that I only need to know about logistics, click on search, and it will automatically save this search for when I come back next time, and it will show me the suppliers that have those tags. So you can see here I can jump straight off again, and it shows me the tags associated in the activities. The rest are more general. So the new unverified contacts, I added a new contact today in SRM Dojo, and they were called new contacts at newsupplier.com, I think. And what's happened is it's created a new unverified contact. The system has automatically assigned them to a new supplier, and it said, okay, well, we're not 100% sure we've put this in the right place. Here's a little notification just for you to double check. And you can mark them here to say, okay, this person actually, it's been assigned correctly. Similarly, in the bottom left, because this new contact wasn't part of an existing supplier, we've also created a new supplier, and you can see it's been automatically generated by the system when it was created. And I can see that no owners or tags have been assigned to this supplier yet, so it's a call to action for me to assign those. In the bottom right, just an overall idea on the health of your ongoing activities. This summarizes all of the activities within the tool that are not completed or cancelled, and gives you an idea of the health of those. Okay, I think that's everything I wanted to show within the tool. Just to reiterate, we really do want this to become your hub of procurement, a single location for everything you want to see from various other tools, and the ability to log anything you see fit. And that brings me very nicely on to the next slide, which is what we're planning for the future. And number one will be that we're very keen to hear from you. This is a product that has been a long time in the making, that I'd like to give thanks to those users who've been involved in the workshops that Adam spoke on earlier, but also were involved in the beta testing and have been a real lovely for me to bounce ideas off. That's been fantastic. And I still want to hear from people going forward. We've got a phase 2 plan for later in 2021 at the moment, and more functionality that could go into that would be really nice to hear about. We have some ideas already on what that might be, things like participant interaction with the tool to update their fields, document storage against the supplier records. We've got a few ideas, but it'd be lovely to hear from you. Other modules that are going to link into the SRM in the future, everyone has a different idea on what it is, but one of those is going to be scorecarding. So this is the ability to send out essentially questionnaires, but ranking cards to your internal and external stakeholders. So you could rate your suppliers. You could send a scorecard internally and say, okay, how are they performing against these metrics? You could send one internally and externally and see how you judge each other with some gap analysis to decide whether things need to be improved. You can monitor contractual KPIs is the plan. So when you add a contract in Contract Dojo, if you add those KPIs, you'll have the ability to automatically generate a scorecard that gets sent out every X months. And that's the scorecarding module. Then we'll have the supplier performance management tool, which will essentially be a way of generating an overall health score for your supplier. So right now we have that collation of all the data, that very powerful data into one location where you can find it. It would be lovely for us to generate a then tool which says, okay, well, this supplier is in great health, and giving you the ability to assign what's important towards that score. And then having the ability on the back of that, based on the tiering of a supplier or other tags and their current health, for an action plan to be put in place. Right, I've touched on what's going to be in the future. I think that's the end of my time speaking. I'm going to have a quick drink, but if you've got any questions, please feel free to pop them in. I know Adam's been monitoring, and I'm going to have a quick drink and then I'm available to answer them.
No worries at all. Thanks so much, Ben. That was great to see, and we've covered an awful lot in a short period of time there. Just before we do go into the questions, guys, and we will try to cover all of them, I can see there's been some really, really good questions that I'll challenge with Ben to answer those in a moment. But please do bear in mind, obviously, if anybody would like a demonstration for themselves that we can focus a little bit more about where you would see the value in using the tool, perhaps with some of your existing live data, then please do reach out to us. I'm aware that some of the people that will have joined this webinar have respective account managers that they can reach out to. However, if you've never interacted with Market Dojo before, it's really simple to get hold of us. You can email info@marketdojo.com, or you can just visit our website and you'll see that there's the ability to start a live chat. And one of our team will get back to you. Alternatively, you can leave your details on a form requesting a call back. So don't feel like you're expected to know everything here right now. If anybody would like a further tour or a more in-depth tour of the module at a later date, then do reach out to us. But let's go into the questions then. I will try to get through all of them, and I'll try and do them in chronological order as well, because I can see some of them came in very early. So the first question, Ben, it's from Levida. They ask, can you upload documents, and is there a supplier rating option? I appreciate you've probably gone over some of this since the question was asked, but yeah, if you could answer that one, that'd be great.
Yeah, sure. So the documents that are pulled from various other locations currently. So if you have documents in Sim Dojo or in Contract Dojo, they're shown against the record. We don't currently have a document depository specific to the SRM at the moment. That's one of the things that we'd like to tackle in a phase 2 later this year. Any ideas like that, more than happy to hear that feedback. On the customer scoring side, on the supplier scoring side of things, if you're managing that outside of the tool right now, you could certainly put those scores into the tool in terms of a tag or maybe a custom field if you wanted to do it that way. And then you could obviously, from the dashboard, just have it set so that you can see the underperforming suppliers. In terms of generating that score internally, I just touched on that. Yeah, we're have hopes, well, we plan for the future to produce that SPM support, supplier performance management tool that will generate those automatically for you.
Thanks, that's great. Next question from Andrea. Can SRM be used at a project level? For example, several suppliers against one project?
Yes, so the way you would manage that right now is for an activity, what you would do is you can put as many different supplier contacts in there as you see fit. So there is no you don't necessarily need to stay supplier specific. So when I was creating that new activity, there's nothing stopping me adding as many different contacts from as many different suppliers as I see fit. If it's an ongoing project, what I'd probably then recommend is that you have that ongoing project as kind of the key activity. And then as I showed you with the sub activities, I'd then go on to say, okay, I'd have various sub activities underneath it for the various stages of the projects with their own deadlines, perhaps on we need to have achieved this by phase 1 by February and phase 2 by March. But yeah, there's nothing stopping you having as many different suppliers associated with that as you'd like.
Awesome, great to know, Ben. Thanks so much. Next question is from Emil. Hi, is there a function for ticketing where a user can register a supplier error that then the supplier can read and mitigate?
Sure. So that would be in terms of the data on the supplier records. Yeah. So please correct me if I'm going off on a tangent here, but yeah. So that's another. Again, we had so much functionality we wanted to get into the SRM. This is our initial release, and we're really proud of the functionality we've been able to put in. We know there's a whole host of things that are going to make it even better, which is why we're planning a phase 2 so soon after phase 1. After a little period of feedback. So yeah, part of that is going to be having participants having access to the tool. So I can say, here's a set number of fields I want you to be able to amend. You might not want them to amend their own name, for instance, or maybe you've got a particular phone number you want. But giving them access to say, can you check these fields, be that against their individual record or the supplier record as a whole, and giving them that access to make those changes and flagging those changes where they've come in some manner.
Awesome, thanks, Ben. Next question is from Nick. Nick asks, can a supplier sign off / agree meeting notes?
Yeah, again, so that would be the next phase of the participant interaction. So right now, what would happen is if you notify them of an activity, they will get that email that gives them all the pertinent information. So they would have the relevant documents in the email, they would have the relevant notes in the email, and the kind of key fields off the activity. But what they wouldn't have the ability is to log in and change the status or add their own notes. That would be part of that phase 2 of participant interaction. Part of the reason we've kind of held off on that is we want to make it as simple as possible for participants to access. It would be fantastic if they didn't have to log in every time they wanted to do that, if they could just click on a particular activity and say, okay, well, I want to respond to that. So that's some of the technology we're hoping to implement in the next few months that will help us to develop that as easily as possible.
Awesome, great, thanks, Ben. We're rattling through these, but feel free if anyone else does have a question to drop it in the box. We do have some time still. One question here that's come in just anonymously: do messages sent to suppliers regarding activities land in their third-party inbox, or can this show on the Market Dojo platform as well? I think that question is asking: does the supplier receive an email notifying them that they've got a message, or you've sent them a message, but does it also show against them in the messages tab on the SRM module or the other modules, say if they were questioned through that, through SIM or through Market Dojo, for example?
I see. So currently no, it doesn't. So they would get that notification with the documents and notes that you choose to send on the particular date that you choose, but there's no instance of that being logged within the notes of the tool. That's a good idea. That's why we're open to feedback for the next few months. So an automatic addition to the SRM notes tab is a great idea and something I'll add onto the long list building up for phase 2.
Brilliant. Thanks so much, Ben. A really good question here from Deb. It's referring perhaps to what I mentioned at the beginning, where I said that the system is intended to be available standalone, but she makes a good point here. You say that the module is a standalone module, but it does look like its best functionality comes from linking with your other products. Perhaps you can elaborate on where the value could be had in using SRM whilst not necessarily having any of the other Market Dojo modules.
Sure, absolutely. So I think the main during the workshops of the initial specification of this project, I think the main gripe that came out of the users I spoke to was that there are a lot of interactions that people are having with suppliers that procurement simply aren't aware of, whether that's promises being made or contacts being shared or agreements being settled. Procurement had no real idea of what was going on, whether that's hidden in face-to-face conversations or through emails. Procurement were getting eyes on that. So the real power of this tool is going to be centralizing all of that data. So having the ability to view all of those suppliers in one place, but most importantly, logging all of those interactions you have. I know how powerful Adam yourself as a salesperson finds a CRM tool, for instance, and knowing what interaction the business has had with that and how with that supplier and how the relationship is currently settled. that's the idea of this tool, is to give you the power to see all of those interactions and plan accordingly how you're going to change the next discussion. So I can't lie, there is a huge amount of advantage to be had in using our other tools. We always want all our tools to come together seamlessly, and you can see the power of that. But I think the real key information is getting everything in one place and making sure everyone is singing from the same hymn sheet.
Yeah, that's a great answer, Ben. And just to add to that, I think most advantageous, if you will, is the fact that the system will generate the data for you if you are using those other modules.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean that it's exclusive to, only being able to generate data if you use Market Dojo elsewhere. So we're very, very happy to look at that one in more detail. Deb, if you wanted to take that offline, but please do reach out to us if you have any more questions. Just moving on, a question from Lewis. On the dashboard, can I see all of the activities for everyone within my team? It's a great question for management.
Yes, it is. So right now, what I would kind of recommend in that instance is that you set up yourself as a kind of a sub owner on activities. Maybe you're not having to action them yourself, but you could view them within the My Activities widget. Also, from the activities field, you can search on the particular team members you want, and also that in the bottom right, you can see kind of the overall health of the activities within the tool. One thing we might look to add in the future is different kind of tiers of owner on activities. So that might be something that you would want to log with us as interesting, is having the ability to log kind of a key owner, and then maybe some just viewer stakeholders that maybe be able to filter the widgets based on that. But right now, I think the functionality is there by utilizing the existing tools, but it would be great to make that as simple as possible in the future.
Cool. And another question here from Anne. Is there any way to edit massively supplier, I'm going to guess that is a typo, supplier profiles, such as tags, financial data, etc.? Is there any way to massively update or edit that when you're on their supplier contact entity?
Sure. So from the list, being able to perform bulk activities. Again, no, not currently. It's something that we already have on our list for phase 2, alongside importing various other things into the tool and various exports as well. So that's something we're looking to do. Whether that's I think bulk updating of custom fields and tagging is going to be the most popular. So at least giving you the ability to do that via imports, but also if we could expand that out so that you could filter your list and say apply a tag to everyone would be fantastic. So yeah, great to have that feedback, and I will make sure it's on the list of things we consider for the future.
I think what's great to see is a bit of a theme emerging, that there's a lot of brilliant ideas for the next step.
Yes.
But it's good because, as I said at the start, a lot of the interpretation for SRM is really, really broad, and the fact that it looks as though we're on the right lines, collectively, as to what our objective is to get from this module is really encouraging to see. So thanks for all of those questions. It's brilliant. And sorry, but Ben, if any of those were a bit challenging.
No, that's fine. I'm as I said the last slide, we are more than happy. This is the stage where we want as much feedback as possible. We've got a few months of kind of sitting back and taking all of that in. We do have that phase 2 planned, as soon as possible, so that we can start working on those ideas immediately. So, I mean, if that's what 45 minutes of demoing can bring, if in the next few months we get even more, that would be fantastic.
That's great. Awesome. Thanks, Ben. I think we're just coming to the top of the hour now, so perhaps I think we got through all the questions from the audience. So thank you so much, and thanks so much for joining. Just a couple of final thoughts from myself, just to reiterate, if there's anything else you would like to take further with us, then please do reach out to either an account manager if you're already a client of ours, or if you're just interested in learning some more detail, reach out to us at info@marketdojo.com, drop us a phone call, or leave your details on our website. You'll see that there is a drop down where you can request a callback, and we'll be very happy to walk through the module in more detail. As you can see here, Ben is just showing you as well that there is some product pages also encompassed on our website, which is actually a part of a bigger project of us revamping and relaunching our product pages. So the SRM module is now also reflective on there, showing you some really nice material about what its intentions are, some very simple infographics to demonstrate, you know, the journey from one module to another and how that all gets tied in with SRM. Some pricing information, much like all of our other modules and true to our ethos, all of our pricing is available online. We like to be very transparent about that as well, but if you'd like to discuss potentially something bespoke regarding your workload or your volume of users, then again, that conversation we're very open to having as well. But yeah, just to sign off from myself, thank you very much all for joining. And if anybody would like to take the conversations further or have a play around with the SRM module in your own time to get started, if you've already got a host account, you'll be able to get that activated and have free users access the tool for free as of today, whenever you're ready. So yeah, please do reach out if there's anything we can help you with there. And Ben, anything more from yourself?
No, I'm really excited to have brought this out. It's been many months in the making. I'm very proud of our development team for getting this out, and I'm really pleased with the functionality. And yeah, it'd be lovely to have as many using it as possible.
Brilliant, Ben. There's just one final question from Andrea. Will
Yep.
we be sharing the presentation slides? I know the recording will go out, but do we have the pack as well that we can share?
I'm going to say yes, and then I will check with our marketing team how I make that happen.
No problem at all. We will get back to you on that one, Andrea, but that shouldn't be a problem at all. So thanks very much, everybody, and until the next webinar, we will hopefully speak to you and hear from you again soon. Bye for now.
Thanks very much.